Claus. Ho, 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 ho. Flying through the snow, can you hear him? Ho, ho, ho. He's so full of cheer, only has to work one day a year. Children in their beds, visions of sugar bombs fill their heads. So many kids out there, Santa must be a billionaire. Red suit, boots are black, big sack of toys hanging off his back. How much does he weigh? How do the reindeer pull his sleigh? Nobody sees him as he travels the world. Leaving his presents for the good boys and girls. Ho, 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 ho. Sees every move you make, better be good for goodness sake. Leave him cookies and beer, he'll be back to your house first next year. I am Santa Claus. Ho, 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 ho.
I don't know how you follow up to that. Santa's rocking out today. Good morning, my name is Carl Rust. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of this congregation. Welcome to you all on this frigid day. Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community, encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you'd like to learn more about this fellowship, please look at our website at uufe.org and join us after the service for potluck today. And even if you didn't bring anything, still hang around, have a bite to eat. For the listening enjoyment of all, we ask you to please turn your cell phones to vibrate. It says pagers, but I don't know if anybody even uses those anymore. And if you need hearing support, please ask at the sound desk. Well, we've kind of made it a custom this year that after the board meeting, I come and give you a little report on what happened, what we decided. And this was maybe the shortest, sweetest board meeting I can remember. It lasted about 45 minutes, so it was great. We had 3 members that weren't there, so we also had some other things we needed to get done, so we expedited. One thing that came up is in the bylaws. Oh, by the way, bylaws. There are bylaws with changes out there for everybody to pick up, and they have your names on them. So please save us a stamp and go to, I might even walk around during the potluck and hand them out, I don't know. But make sure you get your bylaws and look those over, because we already found a problem. Jim Barnes brought it to our attention that the endowment committee is going to be a 5-member committee, and it said in the way we described how people are chosen, we're going to elect 1 member each year. Well, when you have a 5-member committee and their terms are for 3 years, that doesn't work. So we changed one little thing. Instead of saying elect 1 member, we said elect members. So whatever number we need to elect. And later in the bylaws, it actually says for the nominating committee that they will make sure that they have the correct number of candidates for the positions that are open. So we just kind of made that little tweak, which won't be reflected on your copy, but just so you know. We finished, we voted to finish paying for the roof. It's done. They were really fast. I was amazed how fast they were.
They worked on Thanksgiving Day, too.
They were on Thanksgiving Day, climbing up on the roof. It's dedication. We also authorized funds to remediate the black mold in the Learning Center. And just to remind you, don't go in there unless you're wearing a mask until we get this taken care of. And the other thing we did, which you may not be aware of, but our fire panel, which kind of alerts the fire department and everybody if there was an issue here, kind of went kaput on when we had that power surge. I'm not even sure I remember when that was. It was like November? September. So I tell you what, I get a call every day from the alarm company telling me that there's just recording. But we're going to replace that fire panel with an updated model that will also have pole stations, is that correct, Mike? And more highly effective smoke alarms. So we authorized the money to pay for that. And that was about it. So I will turn it over now to Judy for Fellowship Life.
Good morning, everybody. I am Judy Darnell, and I'm here with announcements. And Mike and I are planning a photo essay for next month's focus. So if you have photos of activities that took place here at UUFE over the past year, please pass them on to Mike. You can email them to him, and or you can hand them to him over the next couple of Sundays or whatever. But I will post his email address, so if you don't have a directory, you can check that. And remember that there is no Science and Society next Tuesday, so see the focus in January for the schedule. And don't forget to sign up for the Christmas dinner. There's a clipboard on Ivy Island, so you can sign up for, so we don't get everybody bringing mashed potatoes and nobody bringing cranberry sauce or whatever. So, the Mitten Tree and the Gathering Place is still there, waiting more mittens, for more mittens and gloves and whatnot. So you can, bring them on Saturday. You can bring them on Sunday. If you wanted to bring them during the middle of the week, I have a little box outside the Gathering Place stores that's labeled mitten box or something like that. So you can bring them and we'll make sure that they get put on the mitten tree. Or you can put them on yourself. And while you are doing some shopping for your holiday feast, please remember to toss in a few containers of non-perishables for our street side pantry. You can put them in the pantry. If you would like to do that, you can bring them on Saturday or Sunday or whenever, and stock our shelves here inside. So, we need, last I looked, we need some breakfast items, pancake mix, cereal, and things like that, and we need some vegetables and canned vegetables and fruit. So, last week's attendance was 77 adults, children, and both in person and online and on YouTube. This week's collection of that week's collection of $98 will be shared with Church Community Services, and that's it. And unless somebody wants to fill in for me for Sunday school on the 8th of January, Mike and I are going to be out of town. Please see me. Everything's. I tried to make it easy to use for me and for everybody else too. So But I would love to have somebody different get to know the kids, because we've got great kids. So I will see everybody at potluck.
I should have made myself a note because I forgot to say, not only next Sunday is Christmas Day, and that's the potluck, but the Sunday after is New Year's Day. And right now the plan is to do a 100% online Zoom service for the first. So there won't be any human beings here at UUFE. We'll all be on Zoom. So kind of mark your calendar. Don't drive over here on Sunday, January 1st, because you'd be the only one.
I ring the gong 3 times. Once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. Our chalice lighting this morning is, in these short, dark days of winter, and during the dark periods we all experience in our lives, I light this chalice. And let us always remember that in dark winter and dark times, we sometimes need to rekindle our own inner flame to illuminate our lives. Sorry. It just said gong and chalice, so I neglected the covenant. Please recite with me the unison covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
Season's greetings. Happy holidays. Blessed Yule. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. These salutations are commonly used in the US, in Europe, around the world at this time of year. These salutations can convey feelings of love, warmth, a spirit of goodwill, and giving for many. December, the month that winter officially begins with the winter solstice, offers up a myriad of opportunities to celebrate with food, drink, merrymaking, family, friends, you name it. In European countries, many of the traditions are carryovers of earlier pagan festivities prior to the advent of Christianity. Many other countries and cultures celebrate religious days in December as well. Many of us sitting here today, this isn't big news, we youths tend to understand this idea. Do we actually know what gets celebrated? From mid-November to mid-January, this time period has become known as the holiday season, and for good reason. Today, let us begin a festive journey through the month of December. Our first stop, December 1st, World AIDS Day. While this is not a religious holiday, it is important to note the international effect that AIDS has had on our world. First observed in 1988, 7 years after AIDS became known as a health crisis. This day commemorates all those who've died from AIDS. This day also recognizes the ongoing fight for a cure, works on making medication available to all who need it, and educates people on HIV and AIDS. World AIDS Day is partnered with the United Nations and the WHO. If December is a month of celebration and rejoicing, let this be a reminder of how AIDS has negatively impacted many families and loved ones across the world. Those who are remembered live, so let us take a moment to remember those lost to AIDS. Blessed be. As we begin our travels through December's holidays, let us start in Europe. Many of us here are from European ancestry, so and many of those traditions came with our families. They have their roots in paganism, European paganism, before Christianity. Christianity did this wonderful thing of absorbing many traditions around the world as it spread. Some of those traditions look more like Halloween than Christmas. Remember, winter is a time of darkness, cold weather, scarcity, and even death, which can be terrifying in of itself. While many celebrations focus on light and family and feasting as a way to counter these realities, some areas, however, the dark and scary briefly overshadow the light, making a frightful appearance. So our first destination is Germany, Austria, and parts of Eastern Europe. There lurks a terrifying creature named Krampus. Krampus for president. Krampus is half human, half goat, much like the satyrs of ancient Greece and the forest god Pan. Only Krampus is bigger and scarier. Christianized folklore from the alpine areas of Europe turned this once pagan forest deity into a demon. Thank you, Christianity, for that. On Krampusnacht, Krampus prowls the land looking for naughty children. This is on December 5th, by the way. December 5th is Krampusnacht. Naughty children In some regions, plates are left out for Krampus, filled with, and he fills those with treats for good boys and girls. Naughty children, however, receive a switch. Really naughty children are kidnapped, stuffed into a bag or basket on his back, and taken back to his lair. Hell, in some Christianized iterations, to be cooked in a stew. Don't you just love German folklore? It's like... Many cities in alpine areas today still have Krampus parades, and people dress up like Krampuses. There's a pro, Krampi, to frighten children into being good. This is Krampus's job: clear out the naughty kids and leave the good ones, because the next day hosts a visit from Krampus's boss, St. Nicholas. This is one celebration that has maintained a more overtly pagan aspect with a Christianized subtext. Personally, I think we need more Krampus in the United States, as I can think of some naughty kids and adults he could have. I think we all can. December 6th is St. Nicholas Day. Across much of Central Europe, St. Nicholas visits good children, leaving treats and giving gifts on this day. Children leave their stockings, or in some cases shoes, out on the eve of the 5th, and often have a carrot or hay for his, some places it's a donkey, some places it's a white or gray horse. If they are good, they will find special cookies, chocolate, and small gifts the next morning. This is specifically a Christian celebration to celebrate St. Nicholas of Myra, who was a Turkish bishop known for his generous nature, particularly with children. The spirit of generosity is showcased on this day. Now, there are subtle differences in traditions between European countries for St. Nicholas Day. Not all of these traditions are welcomed by today's standards either. In the Netherlands, the country of my paternal grandmother, much of the celebrating is done on December 5th in the evening rather than on the 6th. It is still a celebration focused on the delight of children, with a visit from Sinterklaas, the Dutch word for Santa, or St. Nicholas. Krampus, however, has been replaced with a helper for St. Nicholas named Zwarte Piet, or Black Pete. Black Pete's origins apparently go back centuries, and in the beginning was more of a dwarvish demon akin to Krampus. In 1850, though, his imagery changed. A school teacher named Jan Schenkman introduced a character of Zwarte Piet in an illustrated children's book. This book portrayed Zwarte Piet as a caricature of an African enslaved person. The Netherlands at the time was still heavily involved in the slave trade and colonization. Slavery and its commerce wasn't banned in the Netherlands until 1863. Schenkman's inspiration for Black Pete is thought to have come from an enslaved man in the Dutch royal court. Since then, festive Sinterklaas Day parades have featured Black Pete as a curly-haired, red-lipped, black-faced caricature of an African man. This is an example of overt racism disguised as Dutch holiday tradition. Today in the Netherlands, there are growing calls for getting rid of Black Pete and his racist image. In a Time article from 2020, one such campaign has been at the head of getting rid of Black Pete, the Kick Out Black Pete campaign. It was started in 2011 by a Ghanaian immigrant to the Netherlands, Jerry Afriye, who was living in Amsterdam. Each year since, more and more people began to gather to protest against Black Pete. Each year those protests saw more and more violence as pro-Black Pete groups fought back. Afriye has been arrested, beaten by police, and threatened with death for his anti-Black Pete stance. Then something happened in 2020. In the US, George Floyd was killed by police. That summer, protests erupted in the Netherlands in support of George Floyd and against police brutality and racism. Since those protests, more Sinterklaas Day parades and celebrations are doing away with Black Pete, or at least the racist caricature of him as a buffoonish African person represented by a white man in blackface. Instead, they're substituting soot-smudged chimney sweep image instead. There is still aggressive pushback in the Netherlands to this, but reconciling with the Dutch slave and colonizing history continues to grow. Bad traditions deserve to fade away and die. So after the 6th, we come to December 13th. In the Scandinavian countries of Norway, Sweden, parts of Finland, and a few southern countries, particularly Italy, December 13th is Santa Lucia Day, or St. Lucy Day. This day, again, is born out of Christianity and honors a young Christian woman named Lucia, who was martyred by the Romans for her faith. One story tells of Lucia, who brought food and aid to the Christians hiding in the catacombs of Rome. To leave her hands free, she fashioned a crown of candles to light her way. It is believed... Oops. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. It is believed that this story, brought to Scandinavia by missionaries, appealed to the Norse with its imagery of light, converting many to Christianity. During this celebration, girls, typically the eldest daughter, dress in white, wearing a red sash and a crown with candles. They then pass out special St. Lucia buns to family members and visitors. Often churches will have a St. Lucia procession of children who sing special hymns. The use of fire via the candles as a symbol of returning light amidst the dark of winter harken back to the Norse pagan traditions of using fire to bring light to the dark. Next stop brings us to the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. This is usually on or around December 21st. This day on the calendar has the shortest amount of sunlight in the day. Humanity has been recognizing this seasonal, tangible event with some sort of celebration or ritual since humanity. Scientifically speaking, the axial tilt of the Earth is the reason for the season. This is the first day that pagans of most denominations celebrate with rituals involving the 4 F's: fire, food, friends, family, and fun. 5 F's of fire, food, friends, family, and fun. Many pagans around the world use this day to make a pilgrimage to Stonehenge in southeast Europe, England. While the true purpose of Stonehenge can only be theorized, certain parts of this monolith do align with the rising solstice sun, making a spiritual connection back to some of the earliest humans on what is now English soil. This is a bucket trip for me. Next we come to December 24th and 25th, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day respectively. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because, well, Christianity has done a really good job of marketing these days. But I am going to make one exception. And that is, we're going to take a little trip to Iceland. Settled in the 800s by Danish Vikings, the people of my maternal grandfather, Iceland has 3 traditions unique to this island country. I'm going to butcher these words, but I'm going to try anyway. Jólasveinar, Jólakatrin, and Jólabókaflóð. These traditions have kept their Viking roots. So first up, Jólasveinar. It's the Yule lads. Starting on December 11th, children will put out their shoes in hopes that the Yule lads, 13 mischievous trolls, will come down from the mountains and leave gifts. Each day from the 11th to the 24th, one lad will visit to leave a gift and cause a bit of specific mischief. They all have names and I was not about to pronounce them. Then after Christmas, they reverse order and continue the gift giving and troublemaking until January 6th, Epiphany. At one time, the Yule lads also had the job of searching out naughty children to bring them back and eat a la Krampus, but modern Yule lads seem to have gone vegetarian. Naughty kids in Iceland aren't off the hook, though. So while the Yule lads are out giving gifts, Icelandic children are hoping that new clothes are some of those gifts. From December 11th to December 24th, Jólakatrin is on the prowl. Cats. Jólakatrin is the Yule cat. He is no ordinary house cat, though, but a giant feline beast that towers above the rooftops and trees. He peers through windows, searching for naughty children that have not earned or received new clothes. If Jólakatrin finds a child with no new clothes, he eats their dinner and carries the child off to be eaten too. Icelandic children are encouraged to give socks at the very least to those in need, so the Yule cat will pass them by. Icelandic wool is some of the warmest and coziest materials. I've been to Iceland. I have Icelandic wool sweater. It is warm, perfect. And it's perfect for what comes next. Now this one I think everybody here can relate to. Jólabókaflóð.
Oh, yeah.
It literally means the Yule book flood, okay? It is an Icelandic tradition that on December 24th in the evening, this is when most Icelanders do their Christmas. They give the gifts to one another on Christmas Eve, and that includes exchanging books. Immediately upon receiving the books, people retire to go read and eat chocolate. Those warm new socks, toasty Icelandic wool sweaters were made for snuggling up with a new book. Iceland boasts one of the highest ratios of books published per person in the world, which is no small feat for an island nation of just over 375,000 people. I think Jólabókaflóð can take pride in helping with that. So then the day after Christmas, because, Christmas, and the day after, we come to December 26th. And we're going to travel primarily to Great Britain and its commonwealths. December 26th is Boxing Day or St. Stephen's Day. Historically, this day is believed to have had its origins in the medieval period in England. Lords and nobles would box up small gifts, leftover feast food, for the servants, and the servants would then get the day off. Today, Boxing Day has morphed yet again and is still celebrated in England and its Commonwealth nations, including Canada. Boxing Day is a day for shopping, those post-Christmas sales, and enjoying sports. Capitalism seems to have corrupted the original intent of recognizing workers, the trades, and giving to charitable organizations in favor of consumerism. Let's not lose sight of this day's original intent, as it seems like a good tradition to hang on to. Workers unite. So, remember when I said some traditions feel more like Halloween? Wales has a really unusual one. This is one of the longest unbroken traditions that date back to pre-Christian Celtic celebrations. Mari Lwyd. And to be honest, they don't even remember what started it. It goes back so far. I can't find why it started, but this is what they do. It's not celebrated widely anymore, but you can find it as, it almost has evolved more into performance art at this point. But it is, people still go about and do this. Mari Lwyd is Welsh for Grey Mare. In this ritual celebration, the skull of a horse is mounted on a pole. It's decked out with streamers and lights and baubles. And it's covered, the pole is covered, and somebody gets under and carries it around. Tradition has Mari Lwyd and a small group going house to house, singing and challenging occupants to rhyming verse insults. Think rap battles. It's like a poetry slam of insults. Ultimately, Mari Lwyd is allowed to enter the home where all are given food and drink. Letting Mari Lwyd into one's home is said to bring good luck for the upcoming year. I did find one interesting article so it's not as popular in Wales anymore, but it seems to be gaining popularity in other parts of the world. And there was one article that featured Mari Lwyd at the Pagan Pride Festival in California. So skeletal hobby horses certainly add a touch of creepy to the dark winter months. As for St. Stephen's Day, this is celebrated primarily in the Catholic tradition in honor of St. Stephen, believed to be Christianity's first martyr. This day is celebrated by eating up leftovers, visiting family, giving to the poor. It's popularly celebrated in Ireland, Italy, and other Catholic-dominated countries. So from the 26th to January 5th, which is 12th night, each day has a saint that is celebrated during this time. And because Catholicism spread around the world through colonialism in the early days of European exploration, the journey isn't just in Europe anymore. Yet it is in Europe where Christianity took root, grew, and blossomed before spreading forth across the globe like an invasive plant. Speaking of plants, you know what that's called? Have you ever heard of Quetlashishe? There, that's Quetlashishe. That's because the original Nahuatl word for it is what we call poinsettia. The Aztecs were cultivating this plant for ceremonies and medicine long before the Spanish invaded Mexico. When Franciscan priests arrived in the 1600s, they began decorating altars and nativity scenes with the bright red plants, thus connecting Quetlashishe with Christianity's Christmas celebration. According to the Illinois University Extension on the history of the poinsettia, it wasn't until 1825 that the plant was introduced to the United States. That year, Joel Roberts Poinsett was appointed as the first U.S. ambassador to Mexico. He was drawn to the beauty of the plant and had a number of samples sent back to the States to his home in Greenville, South Carolina. He happened to also be a skilled botanist. and by 1833 had propagated and given away a number of the plants. One of the people he gave the plants to was a nurseryman named Robert Boyce, believed to be the first person to sell Quetlashishe in the U.S. It is believed he's the one that gave the plant the common name poinsettia as a namesake for Joel Poinsett, who was, by the way, an avowed white nationalist. This plant's original name is Quetlashishe. It's not that hard to pronounce. Don't look at the spelling, though. That's right. Don't look at how it's spelled. It's Quetlashishe. And like so many other symbols, it has been absorbed into Christian celebrations and traditions. And part of those traditions, like I said, took place in Mexico. And this does take us a bit into January, but not by much. Because in Mexico, January 6th is a really important day to celebrate. El Dia de Reyes, or King's Day. Parts of Catholic Europe that celebrate this day as Epiphany, but in Mexico, this is the day of the three kings, or wise men, and they're the ones that arrive and give gifts to children. And the gifts are often, sometimes they're put under a Christmas tree, but often the gifts are left by the nativity scene. Special sweetbreads are eaten, and yes, Quetlashishe are used as decorations for El Dia de Reyes. So those are maybe some of the more common holidays in December that we know about. But our journey through December it's gone, it's done. And we find ourselves arriving at December 31st, New Year's Eve, and January 1st, New Year's Day. Of course, this year turns, happens all over the world. Fireworks, we drop big shiny balls from buildings, parties, friends, family. Again, more feasting and fun. New Year's Day varies in cultural traditions, mainly by what particular foods one eats for good luck and prosperity in the new year. However, I did find one commonality, and that's pork. Many, many cultures around the world eat pork on New Year's Day to bring good luck. So eat bacon. So I'm gonna diverge a little bit and talk about calendars. Okay? Because this is important information to know when you come to consider what about other religions and cultures. It has to do with calendars. So our calendar revolves around a solar cycle, the amount of time it takes the Earth to go around the sun in 1 year. And it's predictable, it's fixed. Okay? Ancient Greeks, but other cultures, when did the new year start? It varied. Ancient Greeks may have recognized the new year as the vernal equinox, which is springtime, for example. When it was believed Persephone returned from the underworld to her mother Demeter. Modern pagans recognize the spiritual new year with Samhain on October 31st. But the real answer to the question of how did New Year's Day become fixed on January 1st has to do with Pope Gregory XIII. In a nutshell, in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII authorized that a new style of calendar be created to correct for some errors in the previously used Julian calendar. And there was an error of 10 days, okay? And because of that error, you had important days kind of rotating through seasons when they were supposed to be fixed in a particular season. The new Gregorian calendar, as it was called, fixed the problems and did so quite accurately thanks to science. It removed the 10 days, added a quarter of a day that would add up to a whole day every 4 years, slapped that day at the end of February and called it good. And it is pretty accurate. This corrected calendar is what we use around the world today. This fixed solar cycles to seasons, solving scheduling problems for the church. This also allows pagan rituals to be tied to their appropriate season, so thank you, Pope Gregory XIII. As I mentioned, not all festivities are in Europe or revolve around Christianity. For many of us here, we know that, we understand that. There is more world out there. So where are the traditions from other parts of the world and other religions in December? There's one more calendar you need to be aware of that will help explain this. We need to understand about lunar cycles. Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and to some degree Judaism all base their holy days on a lunar cycle, not a solar cycle. Now, a lunar calendar follows the phases of the moon from full moon to new moon to full moon again, and that takes about 28 days. That leaves about 13 moon cycles per solar calendar year. This cycle flows through the seasons. It is ever-changing cyclic calendar that religions like Hinduism and Buddhism follow. It ebbs and flows like the ocean's tide. Calendar dates cannot be firmly anchored to one specific date the way it can with the Gregorian calendar. That does not mean there are not celebrations in December for these religions and cultures. So our last part of our December journey has us traveling out of Europe, the US, and Christian-dominated countries. First stop, December 8th, Bodhi Day. In Buddhism, specifically the Mahayana denomination, Bodhi Day commemorates the day that Gautama Buddha became enlightened while sitting beneath the Bodhi tree. Now, Buddhism in general follows a lunar cycle. However, Japan follows the Gregorian calendar. So, and Buddhism is practiced in, it's practiced worldwide, but primarily in East Asia, China, Korea, and Japan. And so the date, December 8th, became fixed for Bodhi Day when Japan adopted the Gregorian calendar in the 19th century. So many modern Buddhists now celebrate Bodhi Day on that fixed date. Milk and rice are often consumed, as this was supposed to be the meal that Buddha ate after he awakened in enlightenment. Ficus trees representing the Bodhi tree are decorated. This holiday is generally celebrated quietly, no loud parties. Meditation and reflection are the main activities engaged in by families. With everyone meditating, hoping to gain enlightenment, households are probably quiet and calm on this day. There are other Buddhist holidays that sometimes come in December, but again, those typically follow a lunar cycle. So now we're going to travel to India and to Hinduism. This year, December has 2 Hindu celebrations that are based on the lunar calendar. And I'll probably butcher these too, so. Gita Jayanti was this past December 3rd, and Danu Sankranti, which was this past 16th. Gita Jayanti celebrates the revelations of the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu holy texts, to Arjuna by the god Krishna. On this day, the Bhagavad Gita is read and often followers of Krishna will fast. This past 16th, Hindus celebrated Danu Sankranti, which is the beginning of the 9th month of the Hindu calendar. This is also a holiday to honor Lord Surya, the sun god. Followers of Surya offer water and prayers to him and often bathe in the sacred water of the Ganges. Again, these dates are not fixed, but ebb and flow like the waxing and waning of the moon. The lunar calendar also explains why Islam, practiced in the Middle East, parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, doesn't celebrate holidays with regularity in December. This year, December 5th marks the beginning of the 6th Islamic month of Jumada al-Akhira. This isn't really a celebration, it's just the start of a new month. Now, most of us are familiar with Ramadan, which is one of the most significant Eids in Islam. The next time Ramadan falls in December, it will be in the year 2030, when it begins at sundown on December 26th. Remember that Ramadan involves fasting during daylight hours, so if you offer holiday treats, make it something either before or after sunrise and sunset. Food and family is something we all share. The last lunar-based holiday for December is Hanukkah for our Jewish brothers and sisters. This year Hanukkah starts today, so happy Hanukkah, and goes through December 26th. It's considered a minor holiday by Jewish standards and symbolizes the story of the Maccabean revolt, where Jews rose up against their Greek and Syrian oppressors. There was only enough oil at the temple to light the menorah for one day, but a miracle from God had the oil lasting 8 days instead. Candles are lit, one each night on the menorah, and gifts are given, games are played with the dreidel, and once again, family, food, and fun celebrate this winter season. As we wrap up our trip through December, our last stop is in the United States for a uniquely American, or rather African American holiday, Kwanzaa. Starting on December 26, Kwanzaa runs through January 1st. From the official Kwanzaa website, quote, Kwanzaa is an African American, Pan-African holiday which celebrates family, community, and culture. It was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, a professor of Africana Studies, and it joins communitarian values and practices of continental African and African American culture, unquote. Families and communities celebrate this 7-day festival with activities and food that honor Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles. Day 1 is Umoja, or unity. Day 2 is Kuchichagula, or self-determination. Day 3 is Unija, or collective work and responsibility. Day 4 is Ujama, or cooperative economics. Day 5 is Nia, or purpose. Day 6 is Kumba, or creativity. And finally, Day 7 is Imani, or faith. Each night a new candle is lit on a kinara, a 7-pronged candelabra that does bear a resemblance to the menorah, but it is not related. As with many other celebrations on this December journey, feasting, family, and community are central to Kwanzaa. The last day is often used for reflection and rededication to the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday rather than a religious one, but that doesn't make it any less important. And that wraps up our trip through December. This holiday, Kwanzaa, all the holidays are a way to celebrate the dark days with family, with our friends, with community, with food and light. And as they say in Kwanzaa, Heri sa Kwanzaa, which means happy Kwanzaa. Happy holidays, go in peace. In the words of Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone. May we go out into the world celebrating joyously and to be with friends and family and make this dark time a little brighter. Blessed be. Amen.
Santa Claus is pagan too, just like all the rest. And if you are a merry witch, he'll bring you all the best. So get that star up on the roof and bake those cookies too. 'Cause Christmas time is really Yule, and Santa's pagan too. He's got that Buddha belly, and his top's the Holly King. You dressed him in that British coat, the cap's the Nordic thing. You took the horns right off his head and stuck them on his deer. But he still flies high like Jupiter with a belly full of beer. Hey, Santa Claus is pagan too, just like all the rest. And if you are a merry witch, he'll bring you all the best. So get that star up on the roof and make those cookies too. 'Cause Christmas time is really Yule, and Santa's pagan too. Now history says Christ was likely not a Capricorn. But if you want to share our Yule, we don't care when he's born. Come celebrate the dawning of the Sun King's bright rebirth. And if you practice what you preach, we'll all have peace on earth. Hey, Santa Claus is pagan too, just like all the rest. And if you are a merry witch, he'll bring you all the best. So get that star up on the roof and make those cookies too. 'Cause Christmas time is really Yule, and Santa's pagan too. Now Santa's way more jolly than most Christians would require. And if you weren't so busy, he'd be dancing around this fire. Yeah, you can call it Christmas, you got his way outgunned. But just you wait till Beltane, then we'll see who's having fun. Hey, Santa Claus is pagan too, just like all the rest. And if you are a merry witch, he'll bring you all the best. So get that star up on the roof and bake those cookies too. 'Cause Christmas time is really Yule, and Santa's pagan too. Hey, Santa Claus is pagan too, just like all the rest. And if you are a merry witch, she'll bring you all the best. So get that star upon the roof and bake those cookies too, 'cause Christmas time is really Yule and Santa's